Welcome to coolk.com. This is a social media platform made in India, made for the world. Uh, this is a platform made by Indians where everything you do remains within the four corners of India. Truly, an Atmanirbhar Bharat effort in the digital world. On Kulke, I do a program called Towards a New India, where we look at how India can be shaped to become a developed country in less than 25 years. Prime Minister Narendra Modi wants it by 2047. I am not happy about that. I want it tomorrow, if not earliest. And one of the things on that particular effort is having full food security. Food security is what gave India the confidence to be a nation that it is today, a nation that has a voice in the Committee of Nations. We were once living ship to mouth. And today we discuss one important part of food security is India We are a population of 1.3 billion plus and growing. Very soon, India would be the most populous nation of the world. There's a lot that is said that today the economy is serviced more by service economy and not by the agriculture sector. But find me a way in which you can make a roti or rice using the digital platform. There is no way hunger can be satiated by the digital way. You need food grains, oils, pulses, everything that you need has to be grown physically. Among them, there has been a solution which has been in the background for a while, which is genetically modified foods. India has had a reluctant start, in fact, a false start sometimes into this sector. India embraced BT cotton a while ago, and the cotton production has zoomed. Then we had the fiasco, and I'm using the word fiasco with a very specific connotation on BT brinjal, where the then Environment Minister Jairam Ramesh clipped it in its wings, and it has been on a moratorium. The current government has also dragged its feet on GM foods, but of late we saw some action, and finally, genetically modified mustard has been okayed for environment release, which means if all goes well, very soon we'll be able to see GM mustard in the farmers' fields. India is a net importer of edible oils. Imagine, large importer of oil and gas, and even edible oils we import. And we import over a lakh crores worth of edible oils. For a country the size of India, we can be self-sufficient and Atmanirbhar in edible oil production. On this edition of Towards a New India, we discuss, is India ready for genetically modified crops? And is that the only way forward? And to give us the fine nuances of genetically modified crops, especially food crops, I have with me Dr. Bhagirath Choudhary, a well known biotechnologist, the founder director of the South Asia Biotechnology Centre, currently housed in Jodhpur, somebody who has been a strong supporter of genetically modified foods for a very long time. Uh, Both Dr. Bhagirath and myself have reported genetically modified crops for a very long time. I as a reporter, he as a specialist. And now Today we discuss GM mustard in great detail. And I hope the government continues with its promise of introducing gently fortified mustard sooner than later into the farmers' fields. And this is a conversation which is of simplicity. It is not a debate, it is not a fight, it is not fractious, it is to enhance our knowledge on something which is so important for the country and the world. Uh, Dr. Bhagirath, thanks a lot for joining us. I know you have been very busy with a family wedding, but still, the topic is so dear to your heart that you have found time for uh, us to have this conversation. Let us start at the very beginning. What is genetic engineering?
Thank you, Pallavji. I much appreciate. I want to really thank you in particular and the Kulke. And I want to bring here an analogy of what you just said a few minutes ago, that this platform is a made in India platform, social media platform. Today, I'm so fortunate, delighted to be part of this platform to talk about another made in India product, which is modified Barnes bastard pollination control system, which in general parlance are called genetically modified mustard. So I want to thank you and Khulke for this big opportunity. मैं खुलके के जितने भी व्यूअर्स हैं, आज जो भी लोग इस प्रोग्राम से जुड़ रहे हैं और जो भी लोग इस प्रोग्राम को देखेंगे, मैं आप सबको ये बताना चाहता हूं कि मैं मस्टर्ड पे खुद पिछले काफी सालों से काम कर रहा हूं. मुझे मस्टर्ड कल्टीवेशन क्या होता है, कैसे होता है, क्यों होता है और उससे देश को, किसानों को, इंडस्ट्री को क्या फायदा होता है, मैं उसके बारे में आपसे बहुत सारी बातें करूंगा. मुझे मस्टर्ड के बारे में बहुत नॉलेज है. मैं पल्लव जी ने कहा कि मैं staunch supporter of genetically modified food crop for many years. I want to put it in a different way. मैं एडवांस बायोलॉजी को सपोर्ट कर रहा हूं, मैं एडवांस साइंस को सपोर्ट कर रहा हूं, whether it is in the form of recombinant DNA, which is being called genetic modification, or the new form called genome editing. I am supporting the advancement in biology because I believe that that is the crux of the food production in the world. जैसे पल्लव जी ने अभी पूछा है कि ये जेनेटिक मॉडिफिकेशन होता क्या है, तो देखिए, you know, these genetically modified plants, they are basically developed to introduce a trait to the plant which naturally doesn't produce. हम लोग साइंटिफिक कम्युनिटी, हमारा देश का नेशनल एग्रीकल्चर रिसर्च सिस्टम एंड ग्लोबली जो वैज्ञानिक इस तकनीक का उपयोग कर रहे हैं, वो इस तकनीक का उपयोग उस कार्य के लिए कर रहे हैं जहां पे हमारे पास जो जेनेटिक पूल है उसके अंदर जो हमें कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स प्लांट में चाहिए, चाहे वो ड्राउट टॉलरेंट हो, सबमर्जेंस टॉलरेंस हो, हमें न्यूट्रिशनल वैल्यू क्रिएट करना हो, ईल्ड इंक्रीज करना हो, या फिर जितने भी जो इंसेक्ट्स, पेस्ट, वेदर एंडेमिक और डोमेस्टिक, इनसे लड़ना हो. क्योंकि हम कन्वेंशनल ब्रीडिंग जिसमें दो एक ही स्पीसीज के डिफरेंट प्लांट्स को कंबाइन करते हैं, उसमें हम कर नहीं पाते. तो ये जेनेटिक मॉडिफिकेशन एक एडवांस बायोलॉजी है. ये 1970 के अंदर सबसे पहले इसका इन्वेंशन हुआ. इट इज ए नाउ क्वाइट ए ओल्ड टेक्नोलॉजी और इंडिया के अंदर हम अभी इसका प्रॉपर यूटिलाइजेशन नहीं कर पाए. आई होप कि साइंस को हमारे कंज्यूमर, हमारा देश सपोर्ट करेगा और आने वाले टाइम में जो ये एडवांस बायोलॉजी, एडवांस साइंस, जेनेटिक मॉडिफिकेशन हो या जीनोम एडिटिंग हो, उसे किसानों को अच्छी क्वालिटी के बीज उपलब्ध कराए जाएंगे. नई टेक्नोलॉजी, इनोवेशन जो अभी उनको मिल नहीं रहा है, आई होप कि उनको मिलेगा. तो जो पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ जेनेटिक मॉडिफिकेशन इज टू इंट्रोड्यूस ए न्यू ट्रेट दैट डजंट एग्जिस्ट in the genome of the existing germplasm that we have in the country. That is all about this whole technology, sir.
But we do this by traditional breeding also. I am a botanist by training, and we do this all the time. The plants which I see around me, are forever getting modified on their own. Why do we need to do it by artificial means?
I think it's very important for viewer to understand that the first product that we introduced in India is called BT cotton. The BT actually stands for a bacterium from where a crystalline gene has been isolated, and that gene has been put into the genome of cotton plant. Why we have done this? It's simply because all the cotton germplasm that we have, whether you have the imported germplasm of, let's say, Gossypium hirustum, or you have a Gossypium barbadans that come from Egypt, hirustum come from America, or the two species of cotton that we have, desi cotton that we call, none of them have a potential line that can express protein that can kill insects that feed on the cotton plant. And therefore, what is the best way is that, okay, you look at this root, that can you actually express a protein in the plant? Plant is all about, expressing a lot of protein, but can you express a specific protein that can target to a very specific pest? And here in cotton, though it's being made out to be a big controversy in the country, but today there has been a huge support from farming community. 95% of the Indian cotton farmer grows BD cotton simply because they know that this particular trait, the characteristics in this BT cotton, would help them to control the insects, otherwise which used to require n number of sprays in the whole cotton season. And therefore, similarly, today you're looking at genetically modified mustards. It's self-pollinated, partially cross-pollinated crop. You are a botanist. You know that there can't be a natural outcrossing between species of mustard. It's very difficult. So what do? You use the mechanism and methods of what is available in conventional breeding system. So we are using actually for hybridization. So you're creating a new trait in the mustards where you are introducing a hybrid trait. You want to actually exploit heterosis. So you want to combine two different lines so that the potential of these two lines can be combined, and then superpower this combined germplasm can be given to the farmer in terms of seeds. So here, we have a conventional system, but we have a limitations. So what you would want to do, you want to use this system of RNase pasture, where you use the genes from soil, bacteria, and do the same what you've done with the cotton actually.
So why couldn't we do it traditionally bred? Again, the same question I'm asking you, because people need to understand that very clearly. Why couldn't we just introduce by repeated back crossing or bringing genes from somewhere into the mustard crop or the cotton crop or whichever crop?
So here, for the viewers, it's very important to understand. There is no one out here to do something that is like for fun. You do a lot of due diligence. You prepare projects. You come out with reviews. You discuss with the scientific community, and you say, are there technologies that we can actually invest and we can develop technologies? Now, in case of mustard, and for the viewers, it's very important that it's all about pollination. Okay, in crops, if the pollination doesn't occur, you will not have a food. So it's all about very basic how pollination occurs in the crop. So generally, we in agriculture, we have two types of pollination in crop actually. So you have crops that are self-pollinated and the crops that are cross-pollinated. Okay, so in self-pollinated crops, how do you introduce this concept of heterosis breeding? How do you introduce this concept of bringing two distinct parents together and create a line that is high yielding, or maybe insect resistance, or maybe disease resistance or drought tolerance? So in case of mustard, since it's self-pollinated, we have huge difficulty to cross the two distinct lines. Now here, for the viewers, it's very important. When I talk about self-pollinated crop, so what happens is that the pollination of a flower, by the pollen from the same flower of the same plant, if it happens, it's a self-pollinated crop. So what is happening is that, suppose I have a mustard plant which gives me 100 flowers, and each flower would carry both male and female components. And there, the male will release the pollen, and it will then, fertile with the female plants, and it sets the seed. Here, here is the concept that since it happens in mustard from the male to the female, so can I bring a male from a distinct mustard plant which has a characteristics that my farmer needed? So here what you do is that you have to ensure that in this self-pollinated plant, you have to remove the pollen or the male part of the flower. If you can't remove the male part of the flower, the male part of the same flower would continue to pollinate the female flower of the same plant. So in this process, it is not easy, or it's not possible to actually remove the male parents of the flower of a plant. You can do it by hand, but in a mustard plant, you have thousands of plants. Each plant would have 150 flowers. It's impossible, and it's like you cannot do it. So scientists, conventional breeding, what they do, they have been trying to find out whether naturally are there lines that exhibit this character, that they have a fertile grain, but they doesn't carry the male parts. Okay, so here, it's not that the people have not done work. It is Dr. Deepak Pental from the Delhi University, who was the first person in the country. Of course, he developed genetically modified mustard, DMH11, way back in 2000, early 2000. But he knew that this product will not reach to the farmer. And he has this worry that, no, I need to bring this heterosis breeding, the breeding to the farmers. So what he has done, he developed this product and put it into the regulatory system. Okay, now government, please, you tell me what studies I have to do to establish that my plant are safe for the human, for environment, and for the animal. And meanwhile, what he started, his team started, is that he started, finding out this one plant in the hay that has fertile, female, but it doesn't have a, the male that can actually then fertile the female. So he identified India's first CMS system. We call it 126-1 CMS system, which he published first time in 2006 in India. Okay, 126-1 CMS system was identified by Dr. Deepak Pental and team, supported by NDDB, Department of Biotechnology, which is conventionally bred a CMS system. Now, CMS basically, I want to tell to your viewer, is that it creates cytoplasmic male sterility in the flower of that particular plant, so that you can use this particular line to transfer gene from one line to another line. So Deepak Pental created this, and he was the one who introduced DMH1, Dhara Mustard 1 hybrid, for the country first time in 2006. But Deepak Pental knew that this CMS system is not the really viable commercial platform to breed, this mustard line in the country. Meanwhile, there was a lot of efforts were carried out by Indian Council of Agriculture Research. In 1989, we had this hybrid, the program in mustard. Dr. Raj Puroda, who supported that program. In 89, we came out with All India Coordinated Research Project on rapeseed mustards. So using that resources, meanwhile, our ICR system also produced another CMS, which actually was a different system, but it was same cytoplasmic male sterility to develop the hybrid. And that system, which ICR developed, is called CMS Mori. Okay, Deepak Pental 126.1, this was CMS Mori. So a lot of effort actually been put into it. Later, and I will take just one more second. Later, private sector saw this opportunity, that this can happen. Until then, there was no hybrid in mustard. And it was Advanta of UPL that came out with a very good system called Agura type CMS system. Now, Agura type CMS system was developed by Advanta, in which originally actually derived from Radis. Okay, Radis is a close species of Brassica. It's from the same Brassicaceous family. And UPL perfected the system, brought it from, I think, France, INRA, and they introduced this Agura CMS system, which became a wide-scale used system in the country. But Agura even today have a problem that we can discuss, and therefore Dr. Deepak Pental continued to work on this Barnes-Buster pollination system, which government has recently approved for environmental release. I hope it clarify what the technology is all about.
Certainly, but yes, you needed hybrids, you needed heteroses, and the easiest way was to try and do it in a fashion where you had male sterility introduced by some gene, and Dr. Deepak Paintal found a neat way of doing it. Uh, Now let's talk a little bit, step back a little bit. We'll come back to GM mustard towards the end again. Uh, you have modern biology and you have traditional breeding. Why do people have so much fear of genetically modified foods?
I think I would like to put this into a perspective where I would like to say that I think these dissenting views from people are most welcome. People airing their views, providing informations. It's very critical for scientific community to take into account what are the societal issues that are emerging. It's very important. It's happening not only in India, it's happening globally, and it happens more in India because we got so many registered NGOs. If I'm not mistaken, we got 6 million NGOs registered in the country who work day and night with the farming community, with the rural India. I'm one of them. I do work with lots of farmer, and I want to see that that these new technologies that actually deploy a gene from species other than the species that is concerned with the farmer, uh, you know, are there possibilities that it might have any adverse impact? So I think having these divergent views are very, very important. And I will come back to you on some of the views that are expressed by people on GM mustard. But the problem is that when it being translated into an activism, um, that's where the problem is being faced by regulators, by scientific community across the world, where the saming of science became so widespread that it demoralizes scientific community. They then don't want to take risk, and it then derail this whole process of advancement, and that's where the real problem lies. It is, if you look at from another point of view, since 1996, when the first genetically modified product was approved, it was Roundup Ready soybean, where what has been done was that the soya seeds was tweaked in such a way that if you spray glyphosate on standing crop, it will not kill the crop and it will kill all the unwanted vegetation. It was a phenomenal technological advancement for countries that has a large tract of areas like Canada, United States, because people don't have a labor and you need technologies to kill unwanted weeds. Unwanted weeds are very big problem for even small scale farmer in India, because we have very poor soil, our moistures, we don't have much of the moisture, and unwanted weeds grows faster than any of the crop seeds. They take away available moisture and take away nutrients. Now they're causing substantial in India. The studies done by National Research Center on Weeds indicates that even in soybean, we lose close to 45% of the yield because of weeds only. Okay, so those countries, use this technology. Now, since it's about the food crop, and you had this whole intellectual property regime that came in parallel with the technologies under WTO TRIPS agreements, and which actually convoluted the whole conversation about how this technology should unfold in the world. And there was some geopolitical forces between countries that have technology and countries that don't have the technology. That has actually created lots of problem, and the problem continues, but the technology found the way. And today, these big countries with big farms, they use most advanced this technology, latest generation, third, fourth, fifth generation technologies, helping them made their farmer much more competitive. We are losing, our farmer are losing. They are the biggest grain, edible oil, animal meal trader in the world, and we are nowhere.
How many countries grow genetically modified food crops?
You know, as of the data available by 2020, that was the latest statistics that I have, 190 million hectares, which is 1.5 times the total arable land area of India. That's the magnitude we are talking about, and I think close to 25 countries in the world. But you know what is more important here is that the countries who are agriculturally important, countries that have a huge say or huge contribution into the international trade in agriculture, are the one who are biggest beneficiaries, because they are the one who were at the forefront to adopt the technology. So I can say the countries like Canada, United States, countries like Argentina and Brazil that has actually similar condition that what we have, you know, are the real biggest beneficiary, and it's being reflected in international trade. For the viewers, I just want to give you example of soybean. You know, we're producing 10 million ton of soybean from 10 million hectare that we grow, 1 ton per hectare. 10 million ton from 10 million. You know how much soybean grain is being imported by China? They import 18 million metric ton of soybean grain every year. From where? North America. How do they increase the productivity of soybean? They use technology. They use genetically modified soybean. And not only first generation. Now they have multiple mode of action. They have and stacking of traits. So you are stacking characteristics so that you are making your farmer much more efficient, much more, they're saving much more carbon emissions. They are also making they're saving soil moistures. You know, what else you wanted? And that's how the technology has created huge impact in the countries that have adopted the technology.
Some people say these GM crops are what are called Franken foods. Now, do you subscribe to that fact that these are Franken foods and these should be feared?
I think for the consumer in developed countries, there has not been much resistance, um, uh, that, you know, what is being exhibited in countries like India, where you ambush uh, each, you know, project after another. And you have here cotton example, you got brinjal, you got mustard, you got corn, you got many products that were under pipeline, but each project was ambushed by activism. And that's where the problem lies. Now, you know, the consumer must understand here, and I would like to inform everyone that, you know, the countries that adopted this technology, they looked at the principle of substantial equivalence. You know, that you are introducing a trade, but when it comes to food, whether this food is as safe as the food that you are consuming. And they look at the nutritional equivalence when we talk about substantial equivalence. And here, you know, regulator, they prescribe tests to look at whether this product that you're developing, of course, you do all the biosafety, environmental assessment, but in addition to it, you look at substantial equivalence. And you say, this product, though it is based on this particular process, but it produces a grain or a food that is substantially equivalent to the food that you are consuming. So why you have to worry about it? Because it's not going to do anything to you. And that's how they have been able to educate the people. Though there are some opposition there also, and which may be genuine or may be driven by motives. I don't want to really get into it. But I think the principle of substantial equivalence is key here. Now, problem in India and other part of the developing countries that we have not been able to communicate properly to the people what is this substantial equivalent phenomena, and why then, you know, consumers should look at substantial equivalence and not the process of how you are developing a product. Now, I want to tell you, Pallav, that in the future, this concept of substantial equivalence would also be changed to something new, where the product quality become much more important than anything else. And if you really look at crop like canola, which is equivalent of mustard, or crop like soybean, because we are talking about edible oil, you know, here it is very important that there are technologies where what they are doing is that they are increasing the level of oleic acid from 60% to 90%. Okay, so you're looking at, for general public, you must be familiar about something like omega 3, omega 6, and omega 9. Okay, they're very important amino acids that we get from vegetable oil. Okay, but they are not present in the vegetable oil. Mustard, it has not more than 20% of the oleic acid. Now, can our scientists use this technology of advanced biology or genetic modification or genome editing to increase the level of oleic from 20 to 80%? Because that's where you create huge nutritional profile. A country that has been suffering so deeply with this malnutrition phenomena, where edible oil is so important component of the whole nutritional composition. So can you allow our scientific community to increase? Dr. Pentel has a product. Even we have a conventional product called low urushic, high oleic mustard developed by through conventional breeding, but we cannot go more than 48% oleic, and then there is a yield drag. I have been struggling this project of Dr. Yadava and Dr. Naveen Singh, who is head of now mustard program in Indian Agriculture Research Institute for 6 years with the support from Technology Development Board. I'm struggling hard to scale it up because when there is a yield penalty, farmer doesn't want to go it for it. So can we use this technology? Can we increase so this substantial equivalence component would also be replaced with something called enhanced nutrition.
Can I stop you here and ask you? See, last 2 years, we've been living through the COVID-19 pandemic, and almost 90% of Indians have had a vaccine against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is genetically engineered. Now, is there a duality in our understanding that we can inject a genetically engineered vaccine, but by taking ingestion through food, we don't want to do? What is this confusion?
I think, Pallav, you know the answer, but my understanding, and I want to bring it forth very clearly. I think it's all about the decisiveness of the government on a product. If government of any country, the sovereign country, if they want a product that they think that it is important, they think this product is important for my country, important for my farmers or my consumer, and if the government decides that this product is safe based on the available data, is being properly assessed under the existing regulatory system. And in India, we have world's oldest regulatory system that exists in the country on recombinant DNA technology. What is happening here is that I think, there are a lot of ideological issues when it comes to policy decision on genetically modified crops. And therefore, you have seen decisions taken so quick on some, recombinant DNA vaccines. Of course, there was a important call of actions taken by the government of India because we were suffering from this pandemic that had, huge health issues for the country. But I believe if government really decides based on the solid scientific data, the facts, the global deployment of the technologies, look at the international trade, look at the difficulties of the Indian farmer, and if they are objective, take a logical approach, I think India could have seen many more products reaching to the farmer field than being struggling with one BT cotton that had played significant role in transforming cotton production in the country. So I think I'm going to actually I'm going to put this responsibility on the government, convincing people with solid data, facts, evidences. I think it's a job that we all must work together, but we must see that there is a leadership to harness the science, advanced science of biology in agriculture. Because a country like India, with 60% of the population, continues to rely on agriculture without infusing technologies. And when I say technologies, we are talking about advanced technologies of genome editing, recombinant DNA, genetic modification, will continue to suffer. And this suffering, government must take some action. Of course, everything is being assessed, but I would like to bring your attention to some of the issues that people have been talking about. And I'm also talking about. And it is very important that we must understand what these issues are. Are they very critical? Are they real? Or not based on facts? So I think one of the most important issues that people have been talking and raising a lot of concerns using verbose, very big verbose like poison in the farmers' field. They are calling it. They're calling it. One second. Yes, Pallav. I'm continuing. No problem. I'm continuing. Yeah. So 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 one of the issues that people have been talking about, and I said that using big words, to scare monger people. One of the word they're using is poison. They're saying that it would be devastating. I think we must be really very careful in selecting these words, because our farmers, the 14 crore farmer family that who have, and in mustard we got around 60 lakh farmer families. I think it's very important for us to be really little careful. Of course, we must raise the issue. So one of the concern that people are expressing is that farmer would, I think Pallav is back, so I think we go on to the issues there. Pallav, we are talking about what are the issues around genetic modification mustard, genetically modified mustard. And,
Sure.
I also have some issues. You may also have some issues. And let's actually really discuss these issues, threadbare. But the concerns that I have is that in last few days, since decision was made available to public, people are using these concerns, and they are calling genetic modification, modified mustard, as a poison. Many people are calling it that it's going to devastate Indian farmers and mustard farming. I think these big verbose must be avoided, because our farm families, there's a lot of illiteracy in Indian farming in a farming community, and these can be very dangerous word for the society to adopt a technology that can be helpful for the technology for the society. So one of the concern, Pallav, that you might also would like to ask, but I want to bring it in front, is that people expressing the concern that there would be rampant use of herbicide, weedicide in mustard cultivation, because it is important for us, all of us, to understand that this genetically modified mustard, though it's being developed for creating hybrid of mustard, but it also uses a gene that provide tolerance to some weedicide like glyphosate. So people say that glyphosate will extensively be used by the farming community. Okay, so this is one of the concerns that is being raised. And then they say that there would be a lot of poison in the field, there would be bees will die, there will not be honey in the field, and lots of problems people are expressing. Here, I would like to tell that, first of all, Government of India has approved genetically modified mustard only for hybrid seed production. When I say hybrid seed production, you want to make available hybrid which is cost effective, 100% fertile. The existing CMS system can only produce 85% fertile seed to the farming community. Here you're providing 100%. It can be cost effective, and then you can have high yielding traits actually. Okay, so then why this whole controversy about herbicide tolerance? People say that farmer would be using, unofficially they would be using glyphosate, because glyphosate tolerance will help them to kill the unwanted weed. Okay, for farmer, for me, if this happens, if anything can kill weeds and doesn't kill my plant, farmer may like to use it. Okay, but there is no official approval to use glyphosate on mustard. Okay, so government has to look at that, how farmer should be trained, what should be the communication strategy, what should be the approval system at this state level, when the label whether the label of glufosinate should be given to the mustard or not, because right now CIBRC doesn't give any label to use glufosinate on mustard. But it is very important that even today, large number of farmers, of the 60 lakh farmers that grow mustard, I tell you, large number of farmers use two weedicide to control weed. One is a pre-emergent weedicide. So farmer, when they prepare the field before sowing, they would spray pendimethalin. And mustard has label of two weedicide, pendimethalin and oxydiazole. One is pre-emergent, another is post-emergent, but not very effective to kill weeds. So farmer, since you have a labor issues, you don't find labor, please go into the field. You will see that you hardly have. So farmer are using. And so this is one of the concerns that are being raised by the farmer. So I believe...
Can I stop and ask you? I don't know whether you discussed that when I was offline, thanks to the internet issue. Give us a little flavor of what happened in BT cotton and how, after its introduction in India, after much opposition, it has become a runaway success. So tell me a little bit about BT cotton. Then we'll come back to GM mustard.
You know, for the society and for all of us Indian, we must understand that the technology that was so much opposed in 2002, which was then approved by late then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, NDA government at that point of time. We had issues, lot of issues people that discussed prior to the approval and post approval. But we must look at both macro and microeconomic data, and both the data set and indicators. In terms of macroeconomic, you're looking at production to assess what happens. You know, this technology, it's not alone. I'm going to tell you how transformation took place. So since BT gave inbuilt protection to the cotton against one of the most deadliest devastating pest called Helicoverpa armigera. एक सुंडी होता था, इली होता था, बोलवर्म, जो कपास के बॉल के अंदर फीड करता था. What happens is that, you know, when square develop, there will be a flower and then you have a ball. At early stage of ball development, they borer, we call them borer. These pests are called borers. They used to feed inside the ball. Farmer used to spray every 7 days in the cotton crop. In 2002, one of the biggest yardstick to really look at is that of the total insecticide sold in the country in 2002, 50% of the insecticide were used to control Helicoverpa armigera on cotton. That was the magnitude of problem that farmers were facing. Okay, technology, you know, enabled farmer with the seeds that would express a protein that would automatically kill this borer. Not only Helicoverpa armigera, but the related species of American bollworm complex called pink bollworm, Pectinoptera, and, you know, other borers. You know, there was a breakthrough for the farming community. In 20 years, we have increased cotton production from 13 million bales to today 35 million bales. It is almost 2.5 times increase in the production. You know, in agriculture system, you have never seen something like this happening in the country, except, you know, during the Green Revolution in 16 and 70s. And there also, it was the gene-based technological revolution. So this BT gene, of course, there, you know, you use gene from the same species. Here, you're using gene from outside a species. If you really look at the micro data, so you look at a farmer and his yield level. You know, today, we have raised our national yield to something like 500 kg lint per hectare. Substantial benefit, but we had issues, and I would like to bring this issue forth. Very serious issue that is emerging today, and that we must address, is that some of these pests, like Helicoverpa, not Helicoverpa armigera, but pink bollworm, started developing resistance against this protein because it is being feeding on cotton for a long time. So for scientific community, most important aspect is that we have not been able to educate farmer that they must and shall refuse that non-BT around the BT cotton. Since, you know, the pink bollworm is a monophagous, okay, it feed only on cotton. and it was continuously exposed to the protein that is being expressed in Bt cotton, that it has developed the resistance. But this has not happened into Helicoverpa armigera, the principal pest. You know why? Simply because Helicoverpa armigera is a polyphagous. So it feeds not only on cotton but other crops and weeds. So in field, Helicoverpa continue to find susceptible moth. So you have a susceptible moth and you have a resistant moth, and mating takes place, and you continue to generate susceptible allele, so that you don't develop the resistance. And Helicoverpa today we have even successful. But with pink bollworm, since there was no susceptible moth, and resistant population continue to breed, developing a resistant weed, a resistant insect. This problem occurred because we have not followed the agronomic practices prescribed during the approval. So this is the only negative that I see in the cotton.
Now, let's spend some time, the last few minutes we had a small break. Let's look at mustard and edible oil in India. Can you tell me some, and there is stark statistics that we are not Atmanirbhar in edible oils. Now, can you give me some, how much are we importing, what are we importing, and is GM mustard a solution?
I think first of all, I would like to say that, somewhere in the edible oil policy, the edible oil sector in the country, I think we never had a policy that could actually address this particular issue in a way that country would not reach to a situations where today we are importing more edible oil than the gold. Our largest import today is of petroleum product. The second largest import in last year, which was at $18.99 billion, which is close to 1.5 lakh crore, it was on edible oil. So in India, we are spending 18.9, almost $19 billion to import edible oil to meet the domestic demand, which is almost 70% of the total 20 million metric ton of 22 million metric ton of edible oil that we consume. I think this situation was not there in 60s, neither on 70s, 80s, 90s. We were hardly importing edible oil. So what has happened over the period of time? Why there was a negligence of this edible oil sector in the country? That need to be seriously looked into. India, that produces some of the oil in our different agroecology, different cropping system, that with the different germplasm, different species, should not be at a position where it is today. We are not only producing mustard, but Pallava, we have soya bean, we got groundnut, sunflower, safflower, linseed, Niger seed, sesame seed, coconut, cottonseed oil, rice bran oil. India is blessed to have this agroecology and edible oilseed crops, that this situation should not have occurred. It is very important for you and me. In a year, Pallav, you and I are consuming close to 18 kg or 18 liter oil per year. Okay? Of this 18 liter, 70% of that is coming from outside. ये हमारी जो जनता है, हम जो हमारे देश की जो पॉपुलेशन है, हम सब लोग हैं, हमारे किसान हैं, इतने ऑयल सीड क्रॉप होते हुए itni diverse agroecology. When I say diverse, I'm not talking about the conditions of the soil, but I'm talking about different seasons where the oilseeds are being grown. But we are such a largest edible oil importer for the country. This situation should not have really. We have a broken policy on edible oil in the country. I think that needs to be fixed. Globally, we have experienced that it is the technology and the seed-based technology that is transforming, edible oilseed production in the world. Today, we are producing mustard soybean. You know, it's very important for people to know that हम लोग 29 मिलियन हेक्टेयर के ऊपर ऑयल सीड प्रोड्यूस करते हैं, 29 मिलियन हेक्टेयर्स। आपको पता हमारा टोटल प्रोडक्शन कितना है ऑयल सीड का? इज 35 मिलियन टन्स। उसमें से फिर आप ऑयल निकालते हो तो हम लोग सिर्फ 7 मिलियन टन ऑयल प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं सारे एडिबल ऑयल सीड क्रॉप से, 7 मिलियन टन। आपको पता है हमारा कंजम्पशन कितना है? हमारा कंजम्पशन 21 मिलियन टन है, 21-22 मिलियन टन। मार्च 31 मार्च 2002 जो फाइनेंशियल ईयर एंड हो रहा है उसमें हमने 14.1 मिलियन टन का एडिबल ऑयल इंपोर्ट किया है, जिसकी कॉस्ट $19 बिलियन थी। और है जो हमारा ही पैसा है, हम बाहर भेज रहे हैं, विच इज सो।
नहीं, ये उगा सकते हैं हम।
फैंटास्टिक।
आप जो बोल रहे हो, माने ये इतनी जमीन है हमारे पास, इतना पैदावार करते हैं हम वो राइस व्हीट के एक साइकिल में फंस गए हैं। क्यों नहीं हम एडिबल ऑयल उगा सकते हैं? क्यों नहीं कर सकते हम? अब वो पाम ऑयल की तरफ भागते जा रहे हैं।
तो हमें क्या करना चाहिए कंट्री को? आई थिंक वी शुड हैव ए 3 level of strategy, a trica of strategy that we must put in place. Number 1, harness the genetic potential using advanced technology, whether biotechnology ho, genome editing ho, new systems of technology which must be evaluated before a product is being approved to the consumer, of course. So सबसे पहला, I think if we really look at the policy, हम लोग क्या करते हैं? I'll come back to you. I want to first highlight on these 3. The first one would be genetic potential using new technologies. So this genetic potential can be hybridization of what Deepak Pentel is doing, or maybe losses caused by insect pests and diseases, or maybe creating a hardy crop itself, or maybe submergence tolerance, or maybe a crop where you are saving nutrient and moistures and you are killing unwanted weeds in these 28.8 million hectares that we grow. And where you should look at, I don't think you should look at palm oil. I think you should look at mustard. You should look at soybean. You should look at groundnut. You should look at sunflower. Pallavji, we used to go to Punjab area. You must have seen beautiful sunflower. All disappeared. Soybean was once grown in large tract of Punjab. All disappeared. Okay. So first is this one that I said. The second, that how do you increase yield per unit area? So use all kind of technologies that related to sustainability, to agronomic practices, mechanization, planting, all the technologies around this. And there should be a mission on it. And third, I think that is very important and critical for our society is that we must look at the consumption of edible oil itself. I don't think as a human we need to consume 18 liter of oil per year. I think we must, as a country, need to have huge education from FSSAI or from other, that let's look at what is necessary and how you can really reduce the consumptions. Can we bring down back to 12, 13 liter, please? That's the prescription that I have.
समोसे और पकौड़े कैसे तले जाएंगे फिर? अगर एडिबल ऑयल कम हो गया, आजकल तो भाई हर आदमी is going towards these faster foods where you have a lot of fried foods which are used. That's in a lighter fashion.
No, but that's I think globally it's happening. Diet is something that we must tell people what it should be. You educate them. There are traditional. No one is saying that you take away your traditional diet out. No, but you look at how do we reduce the use of fat. It's not about taking away choices. And the most important part, how do you ensure that you make available quality oil? Today, of 21 million metric ton, we are consuming 9 million metric ton of palm oil. You go to the grocery and say that I want to buy a liter of palm oil. Do you get it? You don't get it. You get soybean, you get sunflower, you get mustard, everything, but you don't get 1 liter of palm oil. Where is this 9 million ton palm oil going? We are consuming indirectly. Every pegged blending is happening. But you look at food companies using cheaper oil, not good quality oil for the health. using cheaper oil to produce biscuits and bakeries, you name the products. But that's a different aspect. But India should really look at least, I want to, one thing, India must look at, forget about palm oil, but we are importing 5.5 billion metric ton of oil, which is derived from genetically modified soybean and canola, which is produced in Americas, North America and Latin America. 5.5 million metric ton. I don't want to say that GM mustard is a silver bullet, but can this be a idea that can help us to contribute something in reduction of at least this 5.5 million, which is all genetically modified?
So we are already using a lot of GM mustard.
So
imported GM mustard oil.
Yes. So of the 14.1 million metric ton of imported edible oil, 9 million metric ton is palm oil, which is of course a conventional. But the remaining 5.1 million metric ton last year, it was even higher in 2015-16 last year. Of that 5.1 million metric ton is all genetically modified, irrespective of you are importing from Americas or you are importing from Argentina and Brazil. So, and in addition to the 5.1 million metric ton, our cotton farmer who has increased cotton production to 35 million bale, which resulted in increasing availability of cotton edible oil, which is close to 1.4 million metric ton produced annually. So total, if you really look at, we are consuming close to 6.5 million metric ton of edible oil. And why it is good and safe? Simply because there is no protein in the oil. It's all fat. So for me, there is a substantial equivalence. I know that this edible oil, which is genetically modified, extracted from genetically modified oilseed, has the same fatty acid profile that I'm actually using, let's say, of soybean that my farmer are producing in India. But here you are compromising not only the income of your farmer, you are making them completely uncompetitive in the global market. You are taking away their right to use the technology. That's where, I think our country should have a clarity in the policy on these newer technology. And it is very important that this policy enable our regulator to have a rigorous safety assessment of any product before it is being, approved and can be cultivated by the farmers.
Now, we've seen that environmental release of genetically modified mustard has been permitted. Does that make you optimistic that very soon we may have GM mustard in the farmers' fields, or could there be any hurdles still?
I think for the community and for the people, it is very important to know something more about the mustard. Even today, of the 7.58 million hectare of mustard area that we have, 8 million hectare means, you're talking about close to 20 million acres. We have highest seed replacement rate in this self-pollinated crop. Almost 70% of the seed are being sold by private companies to the farmers. Please note this, highest seed replacement rate in mustard. Generally farmer use 1 kg per acre for planting. So of that 70% of the seed replacement, 35% is already conventional mustard hybrid, and remaining 35% is varieties. This 35% translate into making available of this hybrid seed developed using Agura CMS system, which is of the tune of 10,000 metric ton every year. Okay, companies are selling product to the farmer buys it, they see a productivity enhancement and continue to use it. Traditional system, CMS based system, has helped India to increase mustard productivity from 900 kg, 1000 kg that we had in first decade of the 21st century. Now we are close to 12.7, 1270 kg per hectare. It actually did contribute, but we have not been able to increase area under hybridization. This was the similar situation when BT cotton was approved. At that point of time, cotton was grown on 7 million hectare. Close to 40% of the cotton was under hybrid cotton, and we were not being able to increase the hybridization in cotton. But BT technology was a trigger to increase hybridization from 40% to today 95%. I see a similar analogy here, that if this technology is being made available to companies who are producing already hybrid, which is a 3-line hybrid seed production process, costly, 85% fertility, whatever it is, but it's still much more out yielding than the varieties. I think this technology would be a trigger to increase area under hybridization. So then what you're going to do is that you're going to actually make available the genetics that is high performing, and that would lead to increase in yield of mustard. Now, it is important that it's not only about mustard. Look at soybean. I think we have enormous opportunity to transform soya productivity from 11-12 million tons to 20-25 million tons. You have a huge opportunity in corn, makkah. Hamaरी productivity is much lower than the world average, and I think use of genetic modification using BT corn. We have invasive pest of fall armyworm, devastating corn production in the country. Can we make available, let's say, insect resistance technology to corn farmer? I bet you we're producing close to 28 million metric ton of corn. You make available BT corn to the country. India can produce 40 million metric ton of corn. Huge opportunity to increase corn export from the country, and help farmer to cut on the pesticide use, which became so regular after the invasive pest fall armyworm invaded the country. Now farmer in corn using same number of sprays that in the same direction that our cotton farmer used to use. So I think this approval decision is very significant for science, for scientific community, and more importantly for farmer to see that the technology coming to their field, which has been used by their counterparts in Americas since 1996. Even though it's almost 25 years, that farmer could still see that the technology coming to that field. And I believe in mustard, the biggest opportunity that you see is that you can increase the quality of the oil. Can allow our scientific community to bring in this omega-3, 6, and 9, more of omega-3. You're talking about oleic, you're talking about linolenic, you're talking about linoleic. Omega-3, 6, 9, your kids go to gym, they consume all this omega powder. Can we have an oil more of, and it's happening in the US. You have a 80% soya with oleic. You got canola with the oleic. So I think it's a very important decisions which will open up opportunity. It would be I think a trigger for scientific community to relook at the projects that has been put under carpet for last 20 years. I don't want to really blame anyone. I think many people like me, you are trying to raise some of the concerns that we feel that might be valid. But I think it's very important for government and for all of us to really address this concern. And once we know that the concerns are being addressed, I think make it available. Today, people are saying that government is in a rush. I want to tell you that mustard was developed in 2000. DMH11 was the first hybrid for the country. DMH1 came in 2006. DMH11 came even before DMH1. But because of our regulatory system, because of lack of clarity on the policy, regulatory system, it took government of India 20 years to approve it. And people say that we are rushing. I don't understand what is rushing here. There is a document, Pallav, that you must read it or maybe make available to the people, which was released in 2016, called Assessment of Food and Environmental Safety of Genetically Modified Mustard. It's 133-page summary of 8,000 pages mustard dossier prepared by Dr. Deepak Painter with 9 crore funding from Department of Biotechnology. That is the body of evidence that I'm sharing with you, that where is the rush? I don't understand. And if you want to reverse the decisions, you cannot move an inch forward. When moratorium on BT brinjal was placed, there were 3 things that was said in the moratorium. And I would like to bring your attention to the one very important condition which created uncertainty on the safety of cry technology. And because of that particular, you brought in this aspect, raising questions on the safety of crystalline protein technology, that India has not moved an inch since 2006. And I think mustard breaks that deadlock. With the approval, Government of India must come out with a mega project, scientific project, like what we had with National Agriculture Technology Project, and ensure, and I want to make this appeal to the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister, existing. Of course, Vijay Raghavan Saab has been there, but I think we have been really struggling with the funding of science in the country. We have opportunity. This $19 billion worth of edible oil that we are importing, 1,50,000 crore. The total budget of ICR is 6,000 crore. 90% of that goes into salaries. Where would you do science? I think it's very important that we must have a dedicated mission board project on science. Pallav, two more points before I go off. I think, and I want to bring this to the people, very important. There are concerns being raised on pollinators, that people
Yes.
might spray glyphosate, which would actually kill the honeybee. It is very important to know that when herbicides are being applied on the crop, it is important that once farmer sow the seed in the field, both the weeds and the plant start growing. Majority of weeds appear in field by 30 days of the sowing. Okay, 30 days of sowing. So when a mustard is of 30 days, farmer should have seen all the weed is in the field. So what he generally does is that he uses either pre-emergent before sowing or after sowing weedicide to kill that unwanted weed, because they are competing with the nutrient and the moisture. Okay, so you kill them, make it clean, so that, and you can conserve the moisture because you are not doing hand weeding, so you apply the weedicide. It's a very common practice, is being followed by everyone. Two herbicide, weedicide already being approved. So weedicide, whether glyphosate is out of question because it has no approval, but even if a farmer use unauthorizedly glyphosate, I'm just a hypothetical case, it has to be applied prior to the 30 days of uh, 30 days of the sowing. So till 30 days, you don't have any honeybees in the mustard plot, in the field, because honeybee visit mustard when there is a flower on the plant for foraging, for collecting nectars. Okay, so application of herbicide affecting weedicide is out of questions, because you don't apply when the pollinator visit the crop. The second important question, it's very basic thing. हमारी सोसाइटी को ये बेसिक चीज समझना बहुत जरूरी है कि वीडीसाइड को फ्लावरिंग के स्टेज पे कोई अप्लाई नहीं करता है, और बीज है वो फ्लावरिंग के स्टेज पे फील्ड में आती है, और ये जितने भी जो हर्बिसाइड वीडीसाइड है, ये सब कॉन्टैक्ट हर्बिसाइड है. ये जब पौधे के कांटेक्ट में आएंगे तो पौधे को मारते हैं, बी के कांटेक्ट में आएंगे तो बी को मारेंगे. सो दिस इज कंप्लीटली रूल्ड आउट दैट इट माइट हैव एनी इम्पैक्ट ऑन पॉलिनेटर. I see that it has a very beneficial impact on other side. Okay, and which I would like to express. Beneficial is impact of using genetically modified mustard or hybrid mustard. What happens is that when you have more branches on a plant, these more branches will have a more flower on these branches. You have a more flower on the branches, you have opportunity, higher the flower density, you have a higher carpet area for the bees to forage. Okay, which would result into more bee activity, more bee population, higher the collection of the nectars, and you will see huge implication in terms of increased availability of honey to the beekeepers. And this is a very basic, common sense approach that consumers should look at, that if you have a more bees in the field, because you have a more flower, more carpet area, more flower density, more bee, more foraging, you will eventually lead to increase. Now, Pallavji, in varietal mustard, each plant would have close to 100 flower, 125 flower. In conventional or in GM mustard, you have 200, 250 flowers. Okay, and here is an opportunity for bee to have more activities in the field. You have a more honey. People are raising one more questions that I would like to address. They say that the quality of honey will deteriorate. I would like to tell, and again the common sense approach that I want to apply and the foot on the ground approach, that honey is all about sugar and sucrose. It's all about sugar. There is no protein in honey. So there is no questions of deterioration of the quality of honey in case of whether GM mustard or hybrid that you are using. I think these are the most burning issue. One last issue that people have been saying that ये स्वदेशी नहीं है, ये विदेशी technology. Very important because
हाँ, इसकी बात बहुत चल रही है.
हाँ जी.
माने दीपक पेंटल विदेशी कहाँ से हो गए?
No. I think we have to look at much beyond that. Look at the science. Forget about individuals. I think it's very important for people to understand that, of course, the Barnage Barster pollination system, जो hybrid बनाने का system है, वो तो 96 से दुनिया में चल रहा है. इसका invention, that point of time, there was a company called PGS, led by Professor Mark von Montague, who has been blessing me since 21 years from Belgium. Was used and acquired by Bayer. But what has happened over the period of time is that Deepak Pental, at that same point of time, Deepak Pental looked at this Barnage Barster system. And important thing that he has done is that he has modified this Barnage Barster system. And during his the technology modification process, Dr. Deepak Pental filed, I think, around 10 patents. Okay, the first patent Dr. Deepak Pental filed on this technology was in 2004. And I have this list of the last patent that he had was on 2015, obtained in Canada. These patents are in India, Australia, USA, Canada. These are the countries where canola is being grown. And here is the list of patent. I have shown you this list. It's on my Twitter feed. You can go to Indian Patent Office. You can just put this particular line, and you will see that the patents is in the name of Deepak Pental. We must understand that Dr. Pental cannot produce hybrid seed. He is a scientist. He has to license this made in India technology to companies. Okay, and the companies will produce hybrid who are in the business of hybridization. So I think, shaming science or accusing scientists who have dedicated their life for the advancement of science. Deepak Pental actually, on this technology, I believe there is a dozen of PhDs, scientists, PhDs that he had these 10 patents that I'm showing you. I'm not advocating. What I'm trying to show you is what I see available data to the public. So it's not about Swdeshi or Videshi. I think India has a patent on mustard owned by NDDB. You can go to the chairman NDDB Twitter. They say that they have invested 40 crore worth of money from NDDB. All these patents are owned not by Deepak Pental, it's by NDDB and University of Delhi. So I think that's all I wanted to say. If you have some more, please let me know.
In essence, Bhagirath, in less than a minute, can you summarize for the lay audience, is GM mustard good for India or bad for India? Should India embrace it? In layman's language.
मैं मेरे देश के किसानों को और देशवासियों को एक चीज ये बताना चाहता हूं कि दुनिया के अंदर नई तकनीक का उपयोग बहुत बड़े स्तर पे किया जा रहा है खेती के अंदर, और खेती के अंदर अगर सीड नहीं होगा तो आप फूड प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर सकते. आपके पास में ड्रोन होंगे, आपके पास में सेंसर्स होंगे, आपके पास में पानी होगा, आपके पास सब कुछ होगा, लेकिन अगर आपके पास में सीड नहीं है तो आप फूड प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर सकते. सीड के अंदर नई तकनीक के माध्यम से अगर आप सीड की क्वालिटी उसको अगर आप ज़्यादा प्रोडक्टिव बना सकते हो, उसको अगर इंसेक्ट से, पेस्ट से, कीट से लड़ने की क्षमता बना सकते हो, डिजीज से लड़ने की क्षमता ला सकते हो, अगर आप उनको हार्डी बनाओ कि अगर कम मॉइस्चर में, अगर राइट टाइम पे बारिश नहीं होती है, उस स्थिति में अगर वो सीड मरे नहीं, जिंदा रहे, अगर उसके अंदर हम ऐसे क्वालिटी लाएं, जैसे ओमेगा 3, 6, 9 की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, जैसे गोल्डन राइस के अंदर हम विटामिन ए, हमारे देश में डेफिशिएंसी है, विटामिन ए की बात कर रहे हैं, जो कि हमारे देश के लिए वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। उसमें हो सकता है कि अभी हम लोग इतना विटामिन नहीं ला रहे हैं, बट हमें एक एक स्टेप करके आगे बढ़ना है, ठीक है। तो मुझे लगता है कि सबसे पहले भारत सरकार को खुद को, अपने आप को कन्विंस करना पड़ेगा कि टेक्नोलॉजी की अहमियत भारत के कृषि के अंदर कितनी जरूरी है, पहली बात। दूसरी बात, हमारे देश की पॉपुलेशन 140 करोड़ है। भारत जैसा देश खाने में, फूड में इंपोर्ट के ऊपर आधारित नहीं रह सकता, क्योंकि इंडिया जब इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में कोई चीज को खरीदने जाता है, और इंडिया की जो पॉपुलेशन को देखते हुए इंडिया जब मार्केट में जाएगा तो वो उस फूड को अफोर्ड ही नहीं कर पाएगा। तो हमारे देश को ये देखना है कि जो हमारी सीरियल्स हैं, क्रिटिकल सीरियल्स, राइस, व्हीट में हम सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी है, उसके बाद में हम दाल कंज्यूमिंग कंट्री है, तो पल्सेस के अंदर हमने एरिया इंक्रीज करके पल्स का प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा दिया, लेकिन टेक्नोलॉजी वहां भी हमने यूज नहीं की है। वहां भी आज इंसेक्ट का बहुत मारामारी है, उसमें भी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी ला सकते हैं। ऑयल सीड का तो बंटाधार है, आई शुड नॉट बी यूजिंग दिस वर्ड, बट अगर हम 70% ऑयल इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, तो आई थिंक भारत को, हमारे देश को, हमारी कोई भी सरकारें हो, चाहे कांग्रेस हो, हम लोग फूड के अंदर इंपोर्ट डिपेंडेंसी को अगर खत्म नहीं कर सकते तो उसको कम से कम किया जाए। तीसरा सर, देश के किसानों की इनकम को इंक्रीज करने के लिए सर हम लोगों को देश के अंदर कोई बड़े, जहां पे प्रोडक्शन इंक्रीज होने की दिशा में कार्यक्रम चलाया जाए। आपने पल्लव जी बोला था एडिबल ऑयल डेफिसिट है, हम लोग सरप्लस राइस एंड व्हीट प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं। देखिए, राइस व्हीट क्रॉपिंग सिस्टम जैसे हमारे पंजाब हरियाणा वाला तराई बेल्ट का है, क्या हम ये नहीं चाहते कि वो पूरा रिप्लेस हो, बट क्या हम यहाँ पे 3M क्रॉपिंग सिस्टम ला सकते हैं? व्हेन आई से 3M क्रॉपिंग सिस्टम, मैं यहाँ पे बात कर रहा हूँ मस्टर्ड की, विंटर के अंदर, खरीफ के अंदर मैं मक्का की बात कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि हम लोग मक्का में भी ज़्यादा मक्का प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। मक्का का आज कंजम्पशन देश में बढ़ रहा है, बिकॉज पोल्ट्री फीड के लिए बहुत मक्का की आवश्यकता होती है, एनिमल फीड के लिए। तो राइस फीड सिस्टम के अंदर क्या हम 3M M सिस्टम ला सकते हैं कि खरीफ के अंदर मक्का ग्रो करे किसान? ये शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन होते हैं, 120 दिन का, 100 दिन के मक्का आपको प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हो। पहले करते थे मक्का, आज भी बहुत किसान कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वैल्यू चेन नहीं है वहां पे, इसलिए किसान डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो जाता है। दूसरा, विंटर के अंदर हम व्हीट ग्रो करते हैं, क्या व्हीट के साथ साथ उन एरिया में जहां हाई प्रोडक्टिव व्हीट नहीं है, क्या मस्टर्ड लगा सकते हैं एडिबल ऑयल डेफिसिट को कम करने के लिए? क्योंकि ये मस्टर्ड ऑल्सो शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन क्रॉप है, तो आगे जो हमें समर का विंडो मिल रहा है, क्या हम उसमें मूंग बीन लगा सकते हैं? हमारे यहाँ 60-70 दिन की मूंग बीन की वेराइटीज है, दाल की समस्या को खत्म करने के लिए। लेकिन ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट ऑल्टरनेट आज हमारे देश के साथ है, लेकिन ये हो क्यों नहीं रहा है? ये हो इसलिए नहीं रहा है कि इन 3 क्रॉप पे, चाहे मक्का हो, चाहे मस्टर्ड हो, चाहे मूंग बीन पे हो, एश्योर्ड मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस एंड प्रोक्योरमेंट की व्यवस्था नहीं है। तो अगर सरकार एमएसपी डिक्लेयर करती है, मस्टर्ड पे आज एमएसपी डिक्लेयर है 5456, अभी 400 रुपए बढ़ा दिए, 6000 के आसपास पहुंचा दिया, डिक्लेयर है, लेकिन मस्टर्ड का प्रोक्योरमेंट नहीं होता। तो जैसे हमारे राइस का, व्हीट का मंडियों के अंदर प्रोक्योरमेंट सिस्टम है, सरकार प्रोक्योर करती है, जबकि हम इसमें डेफिसिट है कंप्लीटली। तो सरकार क्यों नहीं ये 3M क्रॉपिंग सिस्टम को राइस व्हीट सिस्टम के साथ लाए पैरेलली, और एक प्रोक्योरमेंट का 3-5 साल का बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट लाए, सरकार खरीदे। और क्योंकि ये तीनों इंडस्ट्रियल क्रॉप है, तो सरकार जैसे भी खरीदेगी ये उनके गोदाम में नहीं रहेगा, इंडस्ट्री सरकार से प्रोक्योर कर लेगी। तो हमारे देश के अंदर ये जो बड़े रेडिकल ब्रेक थ्रू अप्रोच एंड रिसोर्स अवेलेबिलिटी साइंस करने के लिए, ये बहुत जरूरी चीजें हैं जो देश को, अगर हमें एग्रीकल्चर में सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी, आत्मनिर्भरता की तरफ चलना है, इन बजवर्ड से बाहर निकलना है, तो मेरे को लगता है कि इस अप्रोच की तरफ हमें सर जाना पड़ेगा। सर ये मेरे पर्सनल व्यूज हैं, मैं किसान का बेटा हूं, साइंस जानता हूं, दुनिया देखी हुई है, मैं चाहता हूं कि साइंस देश के लोगों तक पहुंचे और मैं इसके लिए स्ट्रगल करता हूं। मैं खाली बायोटेक्नोलॉजी की बात नहीं करता, आज देश के अंदर सबसे बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स, मेरा एक छोटा सा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो भारत सरकार के DSIR द्वारा प्रमाणित है, साइंटिफिक एंड इंडस्ट्रियल रिसर्च ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, हमारे पास में PhD बच्चे मेरे साथ काम कर रहे हैं, बड़ा नेटवर्क है मेरे पास। आज इंडिया के अंदर मैंने फॉल आर्मीवॉर्म जब देश में आया तो मैंने पूरे देश के अंदर फॉल आर्मीवॉर्म के ऊपर कंट्रीज वास्ट प्रोजेक्ट आई रैन बिटवीन 2018, 19, 20। अभी मैं कपास के ऊपर जो पिंक बॉलवर्मी की समस्या आ रही है, आज के दिन 1300 एकड़ का देश का सबसे बड़ा एक्सपेरिमेंट डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन 19 क्लस्टर 16 डिस्ट्रिक्ट के अंदर आज चल रहा है, जहां पे हम वीकली डेटा लेके देख रहे हैं कि मेटिंग डिसरप्शन टेक्नोलॉजी के माध्यम से हम समस्या का समाधान कर सकते हैं। मैं राजस्थान के अंदर स्पाइसेस के ऊपर बहुत बड़ा काम करता हूं और क्यूमिन को, कोरिएंडर जैसी स्पाइसेस को आज एक नेशनल फ्रंट पे मेरे छोटे से ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लाने में बहुत मदद की है। तो मैं यही चाहता हूं कि किसानों को तकनीक और नॉलेज के माध्यम से हमें एम्पावर करना है, और इसके लिए आप भगीरथ और सारे जो लोग हैं वो मिल, सारे NGO चाहे कोई भी हो, चाहे अपोजिशन करे, हमें ये देखना है कि किसान फार्मर का हम एक स्टेप आगे कैसे लेके जा सकते हैं। सर GM mustard is not a silver bullet. We should not look at GM mustard as a silver bullet. It's an opportunity to utilize science and technology and innovation to transform other crop for the benefit of farming and the national economy. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Bhagirath. I think the discussion and the conversation which we have had on GM mustard, which got disrupted thanks to some IT issues, but yet it's a conversation which will remain ongoing because there is a lot of education that needs to happen on the technology. Earlier, there was a convolution between multinational and national technologies. Today, there's a convolution of issues which are non-related and some related. But thanks a lot for explaining some of the complexities and also explaining in such clarity that the issue of honeybees and weedicides may not be linked. People need to know the ground reality. Uh, a GM mustard is just one beginning, and I'm presuming that the current NDA government has shown its direction that they are ready to embrace GM crops and GM foods, because the clearance for GM mustard has come from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and now when it will be available with environmental release and subsequently down the line with farmers, and people should be able to see the difference. Ultimately, it's all about consumers accepting a particular product. Indians embraced genetically modified cotton. And like Dr. Bhagirath said, we are already using so much genetically modified mustard oil and soybean oil in our food chain. Uh, so let us look at these developments positively. Indian scientists will do no harm to Indians. That is the basic premise. And all through the COVID pandemic, we saw how genetically engineered products, genetically modified products, we have been using by way of vaccines, and they have caused no harm. Substantial equivalence. That is the key phrase which we should use and move ahead. Obviously, the regulator will take its own role, the government has its own role, and end of the day, should we be spending so much money on importing edible oils? Thanks a lot, Bhagirath, for explaining to us the complexities of GM mustard. And thanks a lot to the audience on Khulke, which is an Atmanirbhar social media platform of India, where we have conversations and not fights and debates and take forward the knowledge on complex issues of science and technology. End of the day, consumer is the king. He will decide what is good for India and bad for India. And the way they embraced BT cotton, maybe that is the way GM mustard will go in times to come. Thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks a lot,
Th-
Dr. Bhagirath.
Thank you, Palaji. Thank you so much. And much appreciations to
Thank you.
Kulke and the people who help us to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.